I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is Scott Gainey. Scott is Chief Marketing Officer at Nile, overseeing the creation and execution of the company's marketing strategy and development of its global brand. Scott's marketing and business experience was formed over 20 years while serving as CMO and in other leadership positions for some of the most innovative and disruptive technology companies, including Palo Alto Networks, SentinelOne, Cisco, and NetApp. Scott is driven by a competitive spirit which has naturally driven him to take on roles within challenger brands. This spirit is what attracted him to Nile and its focus on disrupting an industry complacent in complexity. An opportunity to play an integral role in bringing value to customers eager for a more simple, secure, and reliable network experience. Scott received his BS from Humboldt State University, but he didn't stop there. He's continued his development with business and leadership studies at Stanford's Graduate School of Business and West Point's Thayer Leadership Development Group. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Greg. It's great to be here.
It is so good to have you here. So let's start with a win for everybody right out of the gate. You are a lifelong learner, I know. What book or podcast or what are you recommending to people these days?
Boy, so right now, and maybe this is just a factor of the company that I'm in right now and what we're trying to do to a 35-year-old networking industry is I've been reading a lot on category creation, right? There's a lot of great examples out there in the market, companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, many, many others who have forged new markets in their early updates. So I've been doing a lot of reading around that just to learn about, what are the steps? What are the pitfalls that some companies have taken? What are the success stories that others have experienced? And so there's a couple books, actually, I'll recommend anyone who's kind of down this path. The first is actually simply called Category Creation. Anthony Kanata did that, and they did a great job of, on a sort of case study basis, looking at mostly these are all technology focused, so I will caveat that. So high-tech companies that have really built and established new categories in the marketplace. There's another one that I just actually recently read called Play Bigger. Al Ramadan wrote that book, and that's another one that's really good. If anyone is in that mode where they're working for a very disruptive company and are looking to learn some new techniques that they can share from other companies that have forged similar paths. Those are two books I'd recommend.
I love it. Thank you for that. So you talk about Nile's work is trying to disrupt an industry. You've been doing that your whole career. So you already get that change is a feature in our organization. It's not a bug. We can't get complacent and kind of sit in the status quo for a long time. So as a leader of change, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned when it comes to leading change?
I guess perhaps the biggest lesson is just you have to inspire people to change, right? You have to, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some other companies like Palo Alto Networks that, led significant change in the network security industry. And we, one of the things that we always would do, we never really focused on just the product or technology. It was always talking about the pain, right? What is the current situation that people are in and what are the negative consequences of that situation, right? There's some sales training methodologies that talk about implicating the pain. And so in a way, you have to do that even for your own teams as you're trying to lead them through significant change. You have to kind of help them understand and frame what are those big challenges? What are those issues that you are trying to address in the marketplace, and get them excited about that, right? And I feel like if you can inspire them through that process, then you'll see their own mind start to open up, their thought processes and ideas start to come to play. And then they can kind of extrapolate from that. I'm doing something good, right? I'm doing something big. I'm changing something for the better.
Yeah. So it's, I guess, implicating the pain is recognizing, what's the risk of not changing, right? Of just standing still.
Yeah.
And you talked about inspiring people. And I interpret that you've got to go and meet them, that it's one thing to just announce we're going to change something, but that inspiration piece, that's not an email. That's going and connecting with people.
Yeah. And I've sometimes, in the world of marketing, oftentimes marketers don't get a chance to really talk directly to customers. So, some things I've done too is just put marketers out in the field, like go meet with a customer. I had somebody on the team go sit down with University of Missouri, which is a customer of ours, and sit down and interview the dean, interview the CIO, even interview students to talk about life before Nile came into play there and life after. And there's just something invigorating, right? To be able to go out and see, to hear a student say, oh my gosh, I love it. Ever since you guys have come in, it's been so much better, our whole connectivity experience. And so, that person, and this happened to be somebody on the product marketing team, came back with a new level of invigoration. Okay, I get it. I know why we're doing what we're doing, and I can see the impact that we're having on individuals. And that's uplifting, right? If you can somehow make that connection to the team, because you have, people, particularly across the marketing organization, they're doing a myriad of different things, like different functions, different responsibilities. But if you can connect them to the why and the impact that they are having, not just individually, but collectively as an organization for good, to me, that it's very easy at that point to take them down a path of, change and disruption if they kind of can make those connections and they feel like, okay, this is no longer just a job. I'm actually doing something, and I feel a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day for doing that.
The going and listening and learning from your customers is part of a really smart, design of the customer experience that obviously has a big impact on the brand experience. Tell me about how do you design things with your team and with your people? Because I think those three things go together, right? That you've got your employee experience, customer experience, and brand experience. So I get what you're doing with customer experience, helping the brand. What are you doing intentionally as you're moving through change and you're trying to disrupt things for your employees, for your teams that supports those other two areas?
Yeah, we really do try. And maybe there's a negative effect to this too that I also have to be very aware of. But as a team, we always try to we do a month-end review as a marketing team, right? We look at some data, both, and as well as talk about on more of a qualitative basis, just what the results and observations were from the previous month. And so we do this month end, we do it at the start of each month. In fact, I have one coming up this next month or next week, actually, that we're going to be looking at February. And, what were our observations and experiences there? And what can we glean and take from that then we want to change in the month ahead? And so I'm trying to instill this sense of sort of iterative improvement, right? We constantly have to be looking at past performance and use that as an indicator to some things that we may want to change, right? And so, just as we're trying to change an industry and a mindset, we need to do the same thing internally. And it's very easy, right? I'm as you said in the intro, I'm over 20 years in my career. It's very easy for me to go in and on a cookie cutter basis say, well, here I am at another young company, another startup, another new challenger brand. And I ran this playbook before. Here's what we're going to do this time around. But that would be a big mistake if I did that. I have to be able to adjust to the circumstances that we're in. And every company is going to be unique. And I think as a team, we have to adjust to the circumstances that we're in and constantly change and make course corrections, right? Improvements, maybe stop doing some things, start doing more of other things. And so, yeah, that's one thing I do is a month-end review with the group. And then we oftentimes will aggregate that up into a quarterly type of business review that we do across it.
That's awesome. That's a fantastic design, right? It sounds to me like you're living what I call the ABCs, right? Of leading people through change, right? You're aligning your people, you're building bench strength at the same time, and you're coordinating all the action, and you're doing, so you've got this lovely routine with your team, and it's creating an experience for them that then bleeds into your customers having the experience that they want, and then your brand is getting stronger and stronger.
One other thing I want to kind of slip in there just for thought, right, is I think, and it's something that I learned at the West Point Thayer Leadership Development Group program. I'll never forget General Spider Marks. That was Spider was his call sign. But, he talked about this notion of BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals, and how you really need to lead through goal setting with your team, right? So you set these BHAGs, and then you get the heck out of the way, right? And you let your team surprise you, and you give them sort of the autonomy and the empowerment to go find innovative ways to get there. I think is another thing that we've sort of learned, and we use those month ends to kind of come in and learn from each other. And it's pretty amazing actually to see how people and individuals will rally around those BHAGs, right? As audacious as it may seem, they somehow find a way to get there every time. And particularly if you get out of their way, right? Make sure they have the training and the resources, the empowerment to be successful in getting there. And you get surprised.
Yeah, and that's hard to do because you love what they're rolling up their sleeves for, right? So you love the work, and I want to get in there with you, and you have to fight that temptation because it's their work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. There's that fine line of like I want to see it because I'm curious and excited about it versus I want to see it because I somehow want to provide some oversight there, right? And that latter gets you in trouble. The former, okay, but it's a very thin line that separates that approach.
Right. I have a leader who he loves getting in, right? For the second reason, or the first reason, right? He's just really curious and excited about it. And so in our coaching, I'll say, okay, you can go and you can get in there, but your job is to only ask questions. You're just there to ask questions. You are not there to participate and tell them what you think, because you're going to shut down the work. As soon as you say your opinion, they're going to shut down. So just ask questions.
It's amazing how hard that is for us to do. We actually use a team of sales development representatives, SDRs, that do cold calling, right, basically out to potential prospects. And we use a tool called Gong.io, which actually uses AI to measure the interaction between the SDR and the prospect to see that you have adequate balance of I'm telling you something and I'm asking you questions and letting you talk back to me. And we always strive for 50-50. And it's amazing how hard that is for people to just be quiet and listen.
Yes. So let me bring it back around now. You mentioned your tenure. So over the years, you've probably been given a lot of advice, some of it good, some of it bad. What's the worst leadership advice you've ever heard?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I joke about, and I've said this actually just recently, I brought this up again. It's like, I can't believe this boss said this to me. But I remember at one point he was trying to motivate us all to work harder. And this was with another pretty high growth company. This was NetApp. And NetApp at the time, I think we had 7 or 8 consecutive quarters where we just shattered Wall Street's expectations. So we were working hard. And he was trying to get more water out of the rag, if you will. And he said this line. He's like, you know what? You vacation when you retire and you sleep when you die. I just was like, you got to be kidding me. Really? Like, I mean, this is a marathon, right? And I always tell my team, we're in a marathon. This isn't a sprint. Like, you have to get yourself into a runner's high, right? If you sprint, you're going to build up the lactic acid, cramp up, and then you'll be off the track, right? So it's a marathon. You got to take it easy, take the time that you need, right? If it's cutting out for half a day because you just need a mental break, right? If it's taking a holiday because you just need time, right? You got to take that stuff. And I think this old mentality of, you got to be in the office every day. I got to see the whites of your eyes to know you're working, right? I need you there till the wee hours of the night, right? This has to go away. This is not the way to motivate, excite, and thus get productivity out of your team. You got to give people their opportunities to just give themselves mental breaks, break from the day-to-day. So that's it.
Yeah, that's terrible advice. So
Yeah.
but conversely, what we pull out of that is what you tell your folks is, right. You got to build in the aid stations, right? It's an ultra, right? When I do ultras, my rule: walk through every aid station, get a little nutrition, get a little talk to some people, relax, and then because then you can go again.
Yeah. 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 No, I don't think we give ourselves enough time, quite honestly, to just break out of email, break out of meetings. Like I feel even for myself when I always apologize in advance when I come back from holidays with the team because my brain is oozing with new ideas just because that breaking away from that pattern in the day just gives your brain a chance to kind of free up. And that's where I think creativity comes in and new ideas spur. If you're in the rat race, right? If you're on the wheel, you just don't even have a chance to think that. So yeah, I tell them, I mean, there's times where you have to break away, like take those moments for yourself, even in the day, right? Take those moments, block out time in the calendar, find moments to just get out of the routine. And that's where I think the new ideas, creativity comes into play.
100% agree with you. So that's some advice that you share with young leaders. So when you think about team performance, what's the behavior or practice that you like to see that if everybody on the team did this, our performance would go up?
There's a mentor I have, I'll never forget. I mean, we were sitting down over lunch. He was trying to recruit me into the company. And I was asking them, so how do you measure success? What's success look like for the team? And he kind of said an offhand thing, but it just really resonated with me. It's like, I don't believe we're being successful unless I get at least 6 cease and desist letters in a single year. And I thought, well, that's a funny idea. What do you mean by that? And the point he was trying to convey is if we're not getting cease and desist letters, we're not being disruptive enough. I mean, not that we want to burden our legal team with a bunch of cease and desist letters. His point was just take some risks. Like, I will get your back. Like I don't want to see same mistakes repeated over and over again, but take some risks, try some new things. If it fails, that's fine. Fail fast, learn from it, and move on. And so I kind of really like that sort of life lesson of the team and something that I've tried to instill within the group. Like, you won't be reprimanded for failing. I mean, it's, certainly if something happens on a repetitive basis, yeah, we got to have a conversation around that. But if you try something and it fails and you've learned from it and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, that's great. Like, I feel like there's so many lessons to be learned in that experience of trying and failing that, try to encourage people to do more of it within the team.
Yeah. I mean, the two things that I pull from that, so creating an environment of trust and that safe place that we expect that, and they have to get from you that there's a safety net, right? You don't get a safety net because you're the leader, but you're creating that net for others to go ahead and take that leap.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm blessed right now in the environment that I'm in. I feel, my boss, I report to Pankaj Patel, who's our CEO, and Pankaj was the previous head of engineering for Cisco. So certainly, in his time and tenure as a head of engineering, he's seen successes and failures. And I feel like he's given me latitude even as a leader. So I think it's important, even from the very top down, right? I mean, to instill this sense of like, hey, it's okay to experiment and it's okay to fail. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to forever hold you accountable to this one failure, right? We just learn and we move on. So I think it's fortunate to be in those environments. I think we all as leaders need to try to foster that.
Yeah. So how do you get in your own way sometimes, right? What's the habit that trips you up?
Oh my gosh. It would definitely be, and in full disclosure, I'm an Aries. I'm always excited about everything. And we joke about squirrel chasing, right?
Squirrel.
Like, to me, the unfortunate thing of wanting to try new things, take risks is there's often never a bad idea, right? I think a lot of things could be explored. And so I think that the detriment to that certainly is sometimes you could load a group down because there's so many good ideas out there and you end up pursuing them all. And then you have people that are stressed out because they've got too many different things on their plate. So I think that's one thing I have to gut check myself on. It's just like, you come back to the core. We've got our big rocks, right? Those things that we know we have to do to hit those audacious goals that we've set for ourselves. So we can take on projects as long as they don't impact the closure of those core elements that you have to do in the year. So that's something I have to come back to multiple times to remind myself, like, okay, is this a squirrel? Am I chasing a squirrel here? Like, or is this something that, is ultimately going to be additive to these goals that we've set for ourselves?
It sounds like you've designed a process for your team, as we were talking earlier, right? The monthly, check-in and the QBR that kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow of, yeah, I would love to chase that squirrel, but we've got these things to get done. And so, I can make a list and maybe someday, but not right now.
Yeah. Feather in the cap to the team, my last company, we had a successful exit. We exited that business, sold to another company. And I remember the CMO of that other company, as we were going through the integration efforts, had a team of about 4 times the size of our team. And she was astounded. She's like, man, I can't believe how much you guys have gotten done for such a small team. And it's like, we keep our eye on the prize, right? We always stay focused on the things that matter most, that are going to move the needle. And those squirrels can get you, right? They can drag you in any number of different directions and keep you away from getting to where you need to be. So we do come back to that a lot. Like, let's stay focused on those goals, right? At the end of the day, like, we can take up and test and trial projects that are experimental in nature, but let's make sure they all feed into those main goals that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Attention management, more important than time management.
Yes.
Where are we placing our attention?
Yeah. No, and I think, there's positive ripple effects to that too, because if you can keep your attention focused at where it matters most, you don't have to drag a team down a 6-day work week, at 10 or 12 hours a day, right? I think there's good balance in life with focus. And as long as people can stay focused on those prizes, you don't have to put those extra hours in because you're chasing things that don't matter, right? You're focused, and therefore you can be highly efficient in your day.
Yeah. I've had a great time talking with you. I always like to finish conversations and meetings with an expression of gratitude. So I'm wondering what you're grateful for today.
Oh my gosh. Well, a lot of things right now. Actually, just before this, I learned of a really big deal we just won. So I'm very grateful for our sales team that's crushing it. Grateful for health. I've got, as we're all apparent to the people around us, right? There's just a lot of toughness going on out there. So you're grateful for just your health, both physical and mental. And I don't know, grateful for the blue skies outside right now too. I've seen enough rain.
Awesome. I am grateful for our conversation, for getting to know you better, for learning from you today. I really appreciate your being here with us, and I wish you great success.
Thank you, Greg. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of Ultra Leadership. We will see you next time. If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.